A recent Amtrak plan calls for expanding their passenger service to include Green Bay, Eau Claire, and Madison. As a new proposal continues to be debated in Congress, our Joe St. George shows us adding stops in small towns and big cities requires more than just money.
What can trains do for small towns?
You had a blighted section of town that people wouldn't come to.
Jerome Trahan says a lot. He's a longtime resident and advocate for Meridian, Mississippi, population 40,000. Before the train station came along, there wasn't a museum dedicated to Mississippi artists or that many restaurants. In short, a lot more closed signs than open ones.
Now there is a viable downtown, that lives and breathes with the train station as an anchor.
Across the country, small towns and big cities are anxiously waiting on the infrastructure bill in Congress. President Biden wants to spend $80 billion to improve train travel. If it passes, Amtrak says it would create 30 new routes, including Las Vegas to Los Angeles, Colorado Springs to Cheyenne, Wyoming, going through Denver. And the long talked about Cincinnati to Cleveland train has even been mentioned.
People will jump on on a train and get hit.
The proposal includes stops in the Gulf Coast town of Biloxi, Mississippi, located 2.5 hours south of Meridian. Passenger rail hasn't run on these tracks since Hurricane Katrina.
That's the old station.
Mayor Fofo Gillich says reconnecting Biloxi with New Orleans is a game changer. He sees condos going in right here. Passing a major infrastructure bill will further ensure it happens.
We like to think you get people to Biloxi, the product will sell itself.
But increasing passenger rail across the country is easier said than done and involves more than just money. The Boston Globe editorial board recently said new Amtrak funding should be directed to the places that use train travel the most. They aren't interested in many new routes. And then there's the question of who actually owns the tracks.
About 90% of Amtrak is run over somebody else. And so it creates a lot of tension, obviously.
Knox Ross is with the Southern Rail Commission and says Amtrak often doesn't own the tracks and needs freight trains to let them use it. That doesn't always happen. Many times, freight companies argue passenger rail disrupts their business.
We want to try to work on that because we want it to work for everybody.
One example, during our Meridian visit, the scheduled Amtrak train was over an hour late because freight rail was using the tracks. Passengers were forced to wait. Still, though, as the infrastructure debate continues, towns are starting to wonder if Meridian has a train station, why don't they? Those who use passenger rail believing expansion is overdue.
It takes a little longer, but I think it's a real relaxing way to travel.
In Meridian, Mississippi, I'm Joe St. George.